I took legal action against the drunk driver who hit me, but my lawyer boyfriend is defending him. The car slammed into me. That's all I can really remember. One second, I was driving home, looking at the lights in the distance, thinking about what I had to do tomorrow, and the next second, everything was a blur. I could feel the crunch of metal, my body jerking to the side as the airbag exploded in my face, blinding me with the sharp scent of chemicals. And then, the silence. A strange, suffocating silence that made my ears ring. It wasn't just the accident that shook me, it was everything that came after. The ambulance, the hospital, the sterile smell of disinfectant that seemed to cling to me as much as the bruises. I was bruised on the outside, but it was the inside that hurt worse. I couldn't believe what had happened. One second, I was fine. The next, my life was turned upside down. I'd been hit by a drunk driver and nothing felt the same anymore. I didn't expect the aftermath to be easy. I knew there would be pain. I knew there would be recovery. But I also knew there was something I could control. Justice. I could make this right. Or at least, I could try. I wasn't going to let this man get away with it. I wasn't going to let him walk free while I picked up the pieces of my life. I took a deep breath and called a lawyer. I needed help navigating the mess, and I needed someone who understood the fight. That's when I turned to Aaron, my boyfriend, the man I trusted, the one who knew me better than anyone. He'd been a lawyer for years, and it seemed like the perfect fit. He would understand. He would fight for me. I remember the first night we sat down to talk about it. I expected him to be all business, to get straight to the legal details, but I didn't expect the knot in my stomach when he started speaking. He told me that he'd handle it, that he'd represent me. And at the time, I thought, this is it. This is the guy who's going to help me get justice. But then, something happened that I didn't see coming. Weeks went by and we were in the thick of it. The driver's insurance company was playing games, dragging their feet, offering lowball settlements. The court dates kept getting pushed back, and the stress was wearing on me. My body still hurt, but it was my soul that was slowly breaking. I wanted to scream every time the phone rang, every time I saw another delay or another attempt to brush it under the rug. But I knew I had to keep pushing. Then, I found out what Aaron was really up to. I came home early one evening, intending to surprise him with dinner. I thought maybe we could unwind from the case, talk about something else for once. But when I walked in the door, I saw something that stopped me dead in my tracks. Aaron was sitting at the kitchen table, on the phone, his voice low. The conversation was muffled, but I caught enough words to freeze my blood. Yes, I understand. You'll have my defense ready for the trial. I'll do everything I can to make sure this doesn't go any further. I didn't need to hear more. I knew exactly who he was talking about. He was defending the very man who had hit me. I stood there, frozen, for what felt like forever. My heart pounded in my chest, and for a moment, I couldn't breathe. It felt like everything around me was spinning. This wasn't just about a legal case anymore. This wasn't about the drunk driver or the broken glass. This was about betrayal. A betrayal from the one person I thought I could trust above all others. The one person who was supposed to fight for me. The words felt like they were being ripped from my throat. How could he? How could he stand by the man who had done this to me, knowing how much pain I was in, knowing what it had cost me? I tried to breathe, to calm down, but all I could think about was how this wasn't just a legal issue anymore. This was personal, and the man I thought I knew wasn't the one I thought he was. My mind raced. I felt sick. I wanted to confront him, to scream, to throw things, to make him feel the way I felt. But part of me that I hated, kept wondering, is this really about me? Is it about my hurt, or is it just business to him? Did I even matter to him, or was I just collateral damage in his quest for success? The truth was, I wasn't sure what hurt more, the accident, or the fact that the one person who should have been on my side wasn't. I was trapped. I was fighting for my life in a courtroom while the man I loved fought for the guy who had shattered it. I couldn't even tell which side of the battle I was on anymore. And that's when it hit me. I had to make a choice. I had to decide what was more important, fighting for justice or fighting for a relationship that was already crumbling. But what if it wasn't just about that anymore? What if it was more about who I was becoming in the process? The worst part? I wasn't sure which fight I wanted to win. I needed a break from all of it. I needed clarity. But I also knew that what I was up against wasn't just the drunk driver or the courts. It was everything else too. My trust, my love, my future. And somewhere deep inside, I knew it would never be the same again. The next few days felt like I was living in a fog. I could barely remember where I was or what I was doing. My world had become a blur of legal papers, phone calls, and a constant sick feeling in my stomach that wouldn't go away. Every time I saw Aaron, I couldn't help but wonder, was he really on my side, or was he just doing his job? And when I found out that his defense strategy was to blame me for the accident, to claim that I wasn't paying attention, that's when the ground beneath me started to slip. I thought it was a bad dream. The man I was supposed to trust, the one who was supposed to support me through all of this, was throwing me under the bus to defend someone who had taken everything from me. The same man who had promised to fight for me now wanted me to accept that my pain, my suffering, was my fault. It wasn't just the legal battle that hurt, it was the personal betrayal. And yet, I couldn't escape the truth. This wasn't just about the drunk driver anymore. This was about something much bigger. It was about how little I had truly mattered to Aaron, even though I'd trusted him with everything. My body, my heart, my future. He was willing to destroy me in a courtroom for the sake of his career, for the sake of his ego. I tried to talk to him about it, but each conversation only made things worse. When I asked him why he wasn't fighting harder, why he wasn't looking out for me, he gave me that tired look, the one that said everything without saying anything. It was the same look he gave me when we first met, a mix of charm, superiority, and confidence. But this time, it wasn't enough to cover up the emptiness beneath it. I couldn't even look at him the same way anymore. How could I? How could I trust him? Every time I saw his face, I saw the man who had betrayed me, the man who was supposed to protect me. And instead, he was helping the man who had ruined my life. The trial was coming up, and I could feel the tension building. The air felt thick, like everything was on the edge of snapping. The more Aaron pushed me to settle, to just take the low offer and move on, the more I realized how little he really cared about what I was going through. It wasn't about my recovery. It wasn't about the fact that I could barely walk without pain, that my body was scarred, or that I had lost the life I thought I would have. To him, it was just another case, another paycheck. But it wasn't just about the physical toll anymore. It was about the emotional wreckage I was left with. Every day, I felt like I was losing pieces of myself, like the person I once was slipping away with every decision I made. I had thought Aaron was my rock, my foundation, but now I was realizing that the only thing he was really offering me was a chance to be forgotten. By him, by the system, by everyone who should have cared. I was drowning in the weight of it all. Then came the day of the trial, the one I'd been dreading, the one I had no control over anymore. I didn't want to go, but I had no choice. My lawyer boyfriend was on the other side of the courtroom, defending the man who had changed my life forever. How could I look at him? How could I sit across from him and pretend like everything was normal? Walking into the courtroom felt like stepping into a foreign land. Everything was cold. Everything was sterile. I could barely focus on the proceedings, and when I tried to speak, my voice felt foreign, distant, like I was watching myself from a distance. I couldn't even concentrate on the words. All I could hear was the pounding in my chest, the buzzing in my ears. Aaron was sitting there, his usual confident self, talking to the opposing lawyer, exchanging pleasantries. My stomach twisted. How could he be so calm? How could he act like everything was fine? Was he pretending? Was he even bothered by the fact that I was sitting there, fighting for my life, while he stood by the man who had ruined it? It hit me then. This wasn't just a legal case. It wasn't just a fight for compensation. It was about my identity, my future. My entire sense of self had been ripped away. And the man who was supposed to stand by me was the one helping the man who had taken it. The trial dragged on, but I couldn't focus. My head was spinning. Every question the defense asked me felt like a direct attack on my humanity. They didn't just want to get the drunk driver off the hook. They wanted to strip me of everything that had happened. They wanted to erase the damage, the emotional scars. They wanted me to become a mere footnote in their legal game. And Aaron? He was a ghost. Sitting across from me, I could see how distant he had become. It wasn't just the way he spoke or the way he argued against me. It was the way he looked at me. Cold, detached, like I was a case study, not a person. And in that moment, I realized that the man I had trusted had already checked out. He was no longer fighting for me. He was fighting for himself. By the end of the day, I was exhausted. Physically, emotionally, mentally. I didn't know how much more I could take. I felt like I was hanging by a thread. And every time I reached out to Aaron, I realized there was nothing left to hold on to. I went home that night, and the apartment felt empty. The silence was deafening. And in that silence, I realized something important. I wasn't just fighting for justice anymore. I was fighting to regain myself, to reclaim my own power. And maybe, just maybe, I had to do it without Aaron. I didn't know what came next, but I knew one thing. I wasn't going to let him take my life from me any more than that drunk driver had. The days after the trial were the longest of my life. It wasn't just the exhaustion or the frustration. It was the weight of having to wake up every morning, look in the mirror, and face the reality of what had happened. I had never imagined it would come to this. Never imagined that the man I loved would be the one who was actively working against me. I wasn't just facing the aftermath of a car accident anymore. I was facing the total collapse of everything I thought I knew about myself and the man I had trusted. Aaron tried to talk to me. He called, texted, left me voicemails. He sent me flowers for God's sake, like that was going to fix this. His words were the same over and over. I'm sorry. I didn't want this to happen. I'm on your side. I was just doing my job. But I couldn't hear it anymore. It didn't matter what he said. It didn't matter if his job had pulled him in one direction or if he was conflicted. He had chosen a side, and it wasn't mine. I stopped answering his calls. I didn't want to hear him beg. I didn't want to hear him tell me how hard it was for him, how he'd been under pressure, how the case had been a complicated one. I didn't care. His excuses didn't matter when I was the one who had been shattered. I was the one who had lost. I was the one left picking up the pieces of my life while he continued to play the hero, to maintain his career, to act like everything was fine. I still had the paperwork from the trial on the kitchen counter. It was a constant reminder. Every time I walked past it, I felt a rage bubbling up inside me. I had lost something I would never get back, and Aaron's efforts to justify his actions were like salt in an open wound. The defense team had done their job, and the drunk driver had been let off with a slap on the wrist. Barely any consequence. I had fought, and in the end, I had lost. But it wasn't just the case. It was the betrayal that had broken me. I knew what I had to do. The choice had been obvious for days, but I couldn't bring myself to act on it. I was scared. Not scared of leaving him, but scared of what it would mean for me. What did it say about me that I'd stayed so long, trusting someone who would betray me like that? What did it say about how far I had fallen? The woman I was before the accident seemed like a stranger to me now. One night, after days of avoiding him, I finally sat down and wrote a letter. It wasn't a long one, but it was all I needed to say. I told him everything. How I felt, how I'd been deceived, how I couldn't look at him the same way anymore. I told him that I couldn't keep living in this lie, that the trust had been shattered beyond repair. I told him goodbye. I didn't give him a chance to explain. There was no need for more words. The damage had already been done. I packed up some of my things and stayed with a friend for a while. The apartment that used to feel like home now felt like a tomb. It was the place where I had shared my life with him, and now it was just a reminder of all the lies. Weeks passed, and it was like the weight on my chest grew heavier with each passing day. But I didn't miss him. Not in the way I thought I would. Sure, I missed the version of him I had built up in my mind. I missed the comfort of having someone there. But I didn't miss the man who had let me down. I didn't miss the man who had chosen his career over me. And I realized that, more than anything, I didn't miss being a part of his world. I spent more time focusing on myself. The bruises on my body started to fade, but the ones on my heart, those were still there, raw and fresh. I went to therapy, started working out again, focused on getting my life back in order. The road to healing wasn't easy, and it still isn't, but I could feel myself slowly coming back to life. Then came the moment I'd been dreading. One afternoon, I checked my voicemail. It was from Aaron. His voice was shaky, pleading. "Please, let me explain. I never meant for any of this to happen. I'm so sorry. I just want us to get back to where we were. Please let me fix this. Let me make it right." I deleted it without listening to the rest. There was nothing left to fix, nothing left to say, but he didn't give up. He showed up at my friend's house one night. He stood at the door, looking like a man who had lost everything. He was desperate, begging me to listen, to give him another chance, but there was nothing left for him to fix. There was nothing he could do to undo what had already been done. The man who had promised me, the world had crushed it underfoot, and no amount of pleading could change that. I stood there, looking at him, feeling nothing but cold clarity. "I'm done, Aaron," I said, the words leaving my lips with a finality I didn't think I had. "You made your choice, and now I'm making mine." He stood there for a moment, silent, as if he couldn't comprehend what was happening. Then he turned and walked away. I didn't feel relief. I didn't feel anything at all. The fight had taken everything from me, my energy, my time, my peace. But in that moment, I realized something important. I didn't need him anymore. I could stand on my own no matter how messy or broken I felt. And with that realization, I closed the door. I don't know what comes next. Maybe there's healing. Maybe there's still more loss. But one thing's for sure, I'm done looking back. I have to keep moving forward no matter what. The fight isn't over, but it's mine now, and I'll be damned if I let anyone take it from me again. This is my fight, and I'm done losing.